Hey, everybody. Hey, cool. We've got some people online already viewing, so welcome, welcome. It is Friday. It's Mother's Day, so not Mother's Day today, but it's Mother's Day weekend, so you guys don't forget to get your mom something for Mother's Day. I've got some flowers right here. My mom and mother-in-law and Carolyn and and my aunt are going to do Mother's Day. We're going to do a little barbecue, so it's the first time we've gotten together, so we're excited about that. We've got a fun program in store. We're going to do some Mother's Day trivia, or not necessarily Mother's Day trivia, but just some information about Mother's Day. Maybe we'll all learn something new that we may not have known before. But to kick us off, as we continue to let people log on and get connected, just some random things that I was going to share with you guys. So for whatever reason, I've had a whole lot of energy today. So it means sometimes the higher my energy level, the more difficult it is for me to make completely coherent thoughts. So I'm going to try my best to remember what I wanted to say to you guys, but I'm going to rattle off a whole bunch of really random things. And maybe part of my energy has to do with this morning. So this morning I had to, so you guys know, or if you don't know, I'm a type 1 diabetic, which means I have to take insulin every day. Whenever I eat anything that has protein or carbohydrate, I need to make sure that I take the appropriate amount of insulin. And I have to go to the doctor every couple of months, and they draw blood, and the lab tests make sure that I'm still healthy and doing well. So good news is just I've got a pretty good track record of doing well. I'm doing really well right now with health in general. But I went in for my routine blood work, and they had opened a Hawaiian-style coffee stand at the San Marcos Hospital. And I went in, and after I had my blood work done, because I'm not able to eat or drink before I go in for 10 hours prior. So basically last night I wasn't able to eat after. Uh-oh, Jazz is about to make an appearance. I might have to put Jazz away. He's enjoyed sitting on the computer a lot lately, so he doesn't like being told no. Oh, he's going to come smell the flowers. But he has hung up on our Restless series before, so if he does, I'll have to put him away. Yeah, he's not going to be a very, very willing participant. He likes to sit on my laptop, so it's possible he'll hang up. So regardless, back to this story. Like I said, I've got a lot of energy today, and I'm firing on all cylinders, which means my brain's thinking a whole lot of thoughts. But so I went to this coffee stand, and so my mother-in-law has a house in Maui, and I've been able to go there and visit a couple times now, and it's just awesome. But one of the things that Maui is known for is for really good coffee. So this new coffee stand called Duke's had 100% Maui coffee. And I couldn't decide if I wanted just a regular cup of coffee. I have a tendency to drink strong coffee, so I wasn't sure if I just wanted a regular cup of coffee or if I wanted an espresso. And sometimes what you can do is you can order a coffee, and you can ask them to put espresso into the coffee and kind of make a stronger mix. But I wanted to try them each individually, so I ordered a regular coffee, and then I also ordered an espresso in a separate cup. And they gave me, so this was the cup of coffee that they gave me, and then they gave me this little tiny coffee cup. For those, I have pretty big hands, so for those of you guys that might not think this is that small, that is a very small coffee cup. I guess perspective. Here comes Jazz. Sorry about that. So we'll say that, Jazz, that's warning number 1. Warning number 2, you got to go into the bathroom. He's coming back down for more. So I got this cute little tiny coffee cup. So kind of funny. Yeah, it's one of those video perspectives. Yeah, Jazz might have to be put away today. He's about to go onto the computer again. Hey, Jazz, say bye. Say bye, Jazz. He's misbehaving, so he's going to have to go away. Sorry, guys. I'll be back here in a second as soon as I put him in his little bathroom area. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Sometimes he can get a little rambunctious. He's been sleeping a lot today, so I think he's kind of, now that he's had his rest, he's ready to go into full action and be obnoxious. So this is my cute little tiny espresso cup that they gave me. I guess, yeah, when I hold it out to the camera, it looks bigger, but when I hold it next to my head, you guys can kind of realize it's a tiny, tiny cup. So that was a fun little thing from this morning. The other thing that was fun and exciting for me today was I got this new shirt in the mail. So you guys might not be able to see, but it's basically got a little guy boogie boarding. He's got a boogie board waiting to go into the ocean. And it's got this logo in the front that's got a T on it, and then it's got 1 written down the middle. So for those of you I was just sharing, I'm a type 1 diabetic. So this is the type 1 clothing company, and 10% of all their proceeds go towards providing people in third world countries with insulin. So it was kind of exciting for me to be like something like, yeah, I've got type 1 diabetes, and also I was able to support people in need, because even for me with insurance, I spend upwards of $5,000 every year just on being healthy and being able to exist with diabetes. So insulin is very expensive. So if you don't have insurance, or if you're in a third world country where you don't have accessible, it can be fatal. So it's exciting for me to be able to support something that I connect with and resonate with. So that was cool. But so those are 2 of the things that I just wanted to share with you that are just like stuff today that brought me great joy. And we're going to be talking about later today, after we play our activity, we're going to be taking a look at a story. And the main theme is, don't let rough circumstances steal all of your joy, or don't let them make you bitter. Kind of like I like the espresso because it's really strong and bitter. Some things in life are not as good bitter. So sometimes that's true for people. You know, bitter people aren't always that much fun to be around. So we're going to take a look at what the Bible has a little bit to say about don't let our circumstances cause bitterness. So we'll take a look at that later. But first, in Restless, we're going to kick off. So first off, Happy Mother's Day. Congratulations. I haven't heard from my mom yet. It says we've got a handful of people watching already. My mom said she'd be on. I think Amy also said she was going to be on, but I haven't seen any of them. Once again, also, if you're not in the chat, I don't know that you're watching, so I encourage you guys to go ahead. If you're watching, you can go ahead and put your name in the chat and let us know that you're watching. Or if you are watching on your TV at home, I know Emily and Elsa and Caleb and Nick, you guys have been watching from your TVs, so we can't necessarily be in the chat room, but you're welcome to text me. You guys know my number, and you can engage me that way. So we're going to play a game today, and I think this game is really fun, mostly because I love just like learning things that I didn't know, learning new pieces of information. So a lot of times you guys really like the games that are like fast paced and like how quickly can I do to beat you? Like how fast can you find something on the screen? Those games are fun, but for me, I really love the games that are just like, wow, I did not know that. Or like every time I learn something new, I am a person that enjoys learning new things. So fun facts. So we've got some fun facts revolving around Mother's Day for you guys today. So then you guys will enjoy this. So here we go. We're going to take a look at some Mother's Day, not Mother's Day explicitly, but just mother trivia or fun facts. It's more of like a true or false, not true or false, but yeah. So basically these are going to be true or false questions, and you have to think, do you think that is true or do you think that is false? And you can go ahead and put your answers into the chat, and then we will keep going from there. I'll slide on over here. I'm going to move these flowers a tiny bit. There we go. So we can see the entire screen. Here we go. First question. These are true or false questions. One of the earliest traditions of Mother's Day was Mothering Day, a day when the faithful would return to their mother church. So basically it's saying one of the earliest traditions of Mother's Day is you would go back to your mother church, or basically the church that you were raised in or had a significant moment in, and you would go back and visit that church. So Lucian's saying that's true. What else? Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Do you think that's a true tradition of Mother's Day? Oh, hey, Ian, good to see you. Glad you could join us. Do you guys think that's true or false, that one of the earliest traditions of Mother's Day was Mothering Day? Okay, so we got a whole bunch of truths out there. So I just got a text message. So that's probably somebody giving me a true. Oh, that's my mom saying she's watching, but she's having trouble getting into the chat. So Mom, welcome. Hope you can get into the chat. So here's one of the fun things. I'll give you guys the answer. Real. So yes, this is true. So all the way back in medieval times, so 300, 400 years back, maybe even 500 years back. I don't know the exact date. But Mothering Day, so this is actually like even predates what we would consider Mother's Day today, because Mother's Day is more of a early 19th century or 1910 or something like that holiday that was made in the United States. But Mothering Day was a day where it was the fourth Sunday of Lent. So, Lent is the time leading up to Easter. So it's the fourth Sunday of Lent. And you would go and you would visit the church that you were baptized in. So that's what Mothering Day was. You'd go to your mother church or you'd go visit the church that you were baptized in. So you guys all got this one correct. So great job. Let's check out the next question. Teddy Roosevelt signed a measure in 1908, officially establishing the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. So what do you guys think? I don't know if you are going to get this one right or not, but do you think it's true that Teddy Roosevelt signed a measure in 1908 officially establishing the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day? I was going to say this is one of those ones where maybe you need to not listen to what I said and draw into a little bit of your U.S. history a bit. Lucian, we'll give you a grace on this one because you're Canadian. So what do you guys think? False or true? Teddy Roosevelt signed a measure in 1908 officially establishing the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. True, false, or I guess fake or real? What do you guys think? Fake. Okay, so it was in 1914 and it was by Woodrow Wilson. So for those of you that didn't read too much into the actual information, Teddy Roosevelt would not have been a president in 1910. So that's where we get that information from. He was much later than that. So it was Woodrow Wilson, and it was in 1914. But yeah, so I spilled a little bit when I said it was like a U.S. thing in 1910, but close, not quite, but there we go. Yes. Good job, Maddie, on using your history skills to know that one was false. Here we go, next one. Anna Jarvis, the person with which the concept of Mother's Day originated, became disgusted with the commercialization of it shortly after it became popular. So what do you guys think? Do you think Anna Jarvis became vocally against the concept of vocally against Mother's Day because of the commercialization? Do you guys think she got upset with all the Hallmark cards and all the information that was being just put out there for people trying to buy stuff? Yeah, sometimes when things become commercialized, you kind of lose their glamour. Sometimes that's how I feel about Valentine's Day. It's like, I love you, but only one day a year am I going to do anything nice for you. It should be a thing that happens all throughout the year. Just the flower companies trying to sell more flowers. So we're going to learn a little bit more about flower sales in one of our later questions. So true or false, do you think Anna Jarvis became disgusted with the commercialization of Mother's Day? True or false? Real. So yes, she did become upset with the commercialization and the fact that companies were making money off of Mother's Day. So there's nothing wrong with Mother's Day, but she was just kind of upset that people were using it for financial gain when it should just be an opportunity to make moms feel loved. Okay, next one. True or false, or real or fake? 1/3 of all the flowers purchased for the entire year happens on Mother's Day. 1/3 of all the flowers purchased for the entire year happen on Mother's Day. What do you guys think? True or false? 1/3 of all the flowers. So I listened to a sports talk show host, a guy named Colin Cowherd, has a show called The Herd, and all week they've been doing a commercial for 1-800-Flowers. So it's typically not something that they put commercials for on the sports talk show. But every day this week, it's like, it's not too late. Put in your order for 1-800-Flowers for Mother's Day. It'll make it there. Put your order in by Thursday. It'll be delivered by Sunday. Everybody's like, oh, shoot, got to log on and get that done. So what do you guys think? 1/3 of all the flowers purchased throughout the entire year are for Mother's Day. False. Okay, so it's close, but it's actually 1/4. So not quite 1/3. So that's still high. That means 25% of all flower sales, 25% of all flower sales are for Mother's Day, which is pretty significant. Pretty significant. So what do you guys think? 4 times a year, you got Mother's Day, you've got Valentine's Day, you got birthdays. What's the other 4th? And honey, I screwed up. I don't know. What's the 4th day? Or just because sounds better than honey, I screwed up. But yeah, I'm sure there's a whole slew of other reasons that people buy flowers. I'm sure I love you is a very valid one, or congratulations is another. I bet you get well soon is probably another very common flower delivery service. So good job for all of you guys that called false on that one. Here we go. Let's check out the next question. Pink and red carnations are to be given to mothers still living, while white carnations are for those mothers who have passed. So pink and red carnations are gifts that you give to mothers that are still living. And if you want to honor a mother who has passed, you would use a white carnation. What do you guys think? Is that true or false? True. I don't know why I remember this, but I just remember in like 3rd or 4th grade, we were learning about what all the different colors of flowers and what they mean. And they like, a yellow flower means this and a white flower means this. And I don't remember any of that stuff. Don't remember any of it. All I know is if they look nice, that's what I use as a justification. But I'm sure there's people that are very intentional with the color of flowers that they use. But for me, I think those look nice. So, but we're going to actually talk a little bit about gift giving in general. So for me, sometimes I'm not the greatest gift giver. So sometimes maybe I need to learn what color flower means what. I shared with you guys once I bought my mom a soccer video game for her birthday. You know, obviously my mom did not want a soccer video game for her birthday. It was obviously what I wanted, right? So sometimes going out and just buying what you think is something nice might not be exactly what that person wants. So here we go. Let's find out the fact about this flower. Let's learn about flower colors here. True. So real. That is fact. So pink and red carnations. So if your mother is still living, you can get her pink and red carnations. So if you guys are going to be at church on Sunday, we're going to have carnations for you guys to give to your moms. So we'll make sure that they're not white. How about that? So there you go. That's the tradition. That's the tradition. Next one. Approximately 14 billion is spent on Mother's Day each year in the USA alone. 14 billion. That's crazy money. What do you guys think? Do you think 14 billion is spent every year for Mother's Day? That's a lot of dough. 14 billion. Can you imagine if everybody, instead of celebrating Mother's Day, did something else with all that money? Probably do some good. But honestly, mothers also deserve everything they get on Mother's Day. So the fact that mothers have one day where people spend more money on them than they typically would, probably still isn't justified for how much the mothers are really owed. They should conversely like flip flop that fact and like, how many trillions of dollars do mothers spend helping their kids every year, right? So it's not quite equal. So what do you guys think? Real. See, that is crazy to me. That is amazing. $14 billion spent on Mother's Day. So I'm going to go ahead and say, that's not too crazy expensive if you think about it, because the fact that pretty much everybody spends the day on Mother's Day, and like, you eat good food typically on Mother's Day. Like I said, we're doing a barbecue, so we got a bunch of pork chops that we're going to grill up. We got shrimp to grill. After you do all that and flowers and gifts, I could see how, for the entire country of the United States, that would add up. So it might not be people aren't spending thousands of dollars on Mother's Day, but you get everybody in the United States to spend $50 on something, you're going to be well over 14 billion. So take a look at this next question. What do you guys think? In Yugoslavia, on Mother's Day, the children would tie the mother up, and the only way she was freed was if she gave her children treats. Please be real. Please be real. What do you guys think? You guys think in Yugoslavia there is a tradition where mothers are tied up, and the only way they get set free is if they give the children treats? That sounds like a pretty awesome yet terrible holiday. My mom is probably like, yeah, sounds like every Mother's Day at a Klusmeyer household my entire life. No, I had my moments. What do you guys think? Do you think that might be true? Do you think that in Yugoslavia, the children would tie the mother up, and the only way they would let her go is if she gave them treats? True or false? We got some trues, we got some false, we got some I hope nots. The answer is real. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? So we've got children in Yugoslavia this weekend tying up their mother. That's pretty crazy if you ask me. Pretty crazy, but I'm guessing it's probably not done in a very aggressive way. It's probably a more playful and fun thing, because let's be honest, if a mother didn't want to be tied up, she couldn't be tied up, at least when the kids are still young. So I'm guessing it's probably a little bit more of a fun game where the kids get to pretend like they're in charge for a little bit. Because let's be honest, we all know mom's in charge. Okay, next question. Mother's Day is celebrated in 250 countries in the world. Mother's Day is celebrated in 250 countries in the world, or worldwide. So what do you guys think? True or false? Do you think Mother's Day is celebrated in 250 countries? So like I said, it kind of was only established in the United States in 1914 by Woodrow Wilson. But back in the Middle Ages, the medieval ages, in Europe, there was Mothering Day, which people would return to their mother church. What do you guys think? Mother's Day is celebrated in 250 countries worldwide. True or false? I'll give you guys a second to get your answers in there. A few of you haven't answered yet. Restless is not brought to you by Coke Zero, but there is pretty much a feature every week. It's one of those, when you're in a chat and it's not like a conversation back and forth, I find my voice gets tired and I get thirsty because I'm pretty much talking for 45 minutes to an hour straight, as opposed to like if this was like a podcast or something where there'd be a dialogue. I'm literally talking the whole time. So it can actually get kind of tiring. I find myself somewhat worn out at the end of Restless, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. So here we go. We got some answers in there. We got some true, false, true. The answer is false. Good job, Ian. It's only celebrated in about 50 countries. So, like I said, it's Not even in the United States, it wasn't really a holiday until 1914. So it's still a relatively new holiday. And also, sometimes it's like, it doesn't mean that mothers aren't celebrated, but it's like, for us, it's like this is a nationally recognized day where we're all going to recognize parents. And actually, today is also National Nurses Day. So if you guys have a nurse, like, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I have lots of doctors and nurses that I work with pretty consistently. So if you have a nurse in your family, whether it's a parent that works in the hospital or something, feel free to wish them Happy Nurses Day. But worldwide, there's only about 50 countries that actually celebrate Mother's Day. It's not that they don't celebrate mothers. It's just they don't have a nationally recognized date where they use the day to reflect on how good moms are. So let's take a look at this next one. An octopus mom protects her eggs for about 3.5 years until they hatch. An octopus mom protects her eggs for 3.5 years before they hatch. So what do you guys think? True or false? Do you think an octopus mom protects her eggs for about 3.5 years until they hatch? So what it's saying basically is that octopus eggs last for 3.5 years before they hatch. That is a really long time. What do you guys think? Real or false? Do you think they go that long protecting their eggs before they hatch? So we got some true, true, false, true, true, true. Okay, we got basically it all covered. What do you guys think? False. It's 4.5 years. How insane is that? So instead of 3.5, it's actually 4.5 years. So an octopus mom protects her eggs for almost 5 years before they hatch, right? And in the human realm, we think having to do it for 9 or 10 months is a lot of work. Well, not we. I don't think it's any work at all. But moms being pregnant for 9, 10 months is a significant period of time. 4.5 years is how long an octopus egg goes before it hatches, which is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So let's check. We got a few more. I think we got 3 more questions, so we'll keep going here. Valentina Vasilyeva set the world record as mother by having 69 children. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I'll try to get this name again on my second try. Valentina Vasilyeva set the world record as a mother by having 69 children. Almost 70 kids. That's insane. I don't remember what country it was, but some country in Africa, earlier this week, a woman gave birth to 9 kids at once. So she had 9 children, all in her, she was pregnant with all of these children at once. There were so many in there that the hospital did the sonogram. They did all the, the things where you can see what's going on. There were so many babies that they thought she was only giving birth to 7. So that's how crazy it was. There were so many babies inside of her as she was getting ready to give birth that they only thought there were 7 and she gave birth to 9. That is insane. That is insane. I can't even imagine. There's some things in this world that I can't comprehend. Having 9 babies at once, man. Life's going to be different, that's for sure. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you think Valentina Vasilyeva had 69 children? There you go. Maybe Valentine's Day is named after her. It's possible. What do you guys think? True or false? Here we go. True. True. She had 16 twins, 7 triplets, and 4 quadruplets. How? Can you imagine? Can you imagine every time you have kids having more than one happen? Almost 70 kids? That's nuts. That's nuts. She has more children of her own than I have to deal with in our youth group once a week. That is amazing. So Carolyn and I have some friends, Caleb and Christina, and they had one child. They were living in China, and they had one child, and then they had twins, and then they decided after suddenly having 3 kids, they needed to live closer to family, so they moved back to the United States so they could have their parents help with the raising a bit, because it was just a little too chaotic. I can't imagine what life would look like with 70 children. Like, I have a friend, Ronnie, who has 8 kids, and he drives like a minibus. So it's like, I can't imagine what it would look like to have that many. It's crazy. That's a good question, Ian. I don't know that one, but you guys are welcome to look it up on Google. Okay, I think this is our last question. This is our last question. And this isn't a true or false one. This is just put a number in there, and whoever gets the closest will say is the winner. The most expensive flower in the world costs how much? So this is basically just a question saying, what is not what is, but what do you think the most anyone has ever paid for a flower is? So what do you guys think? How much has someone paid for a flower? Ooh, hopefully I don't screw it up, but I have a picture of the flower. And I forgot to put it in the slideshow, so I'm going to do that really quick while you guys write your answers in. So what do you guys think is the most expensive flower ever sold? How much do you think it cost? How much do you guys think the most expensive flower in the world cost? Okay, I got it in there. What is the flower? It's called the Shenzhen orchid. It's the Shenzhen orchid. So we got $550, $101, $486, $100. My mom guessed 3.4 million. 3.4 million. So she's definitely over, but she might be the closest. Not quite. So yeah, Ian's guessing over 1,000. So those are, you know what? You guys are with me. Who knows? Like, this just pulling a number out of thin air. But the correct answer was actually $248,912. So the Shenzhen orchid, basically it was a bioengineered orchid that took 8 years to raise. So 8 years for it to be, created. And then 4 years from creation to incubation for it to flower. So it had been a 12-year process for it to be created to begin with, creation of this orchid. And somebody in an auction, so it was basically a bid. People were bidding for it. So basically you had to, just like if you're any auction, it's like basically how much are you willing to pay? I'll pay this much, this much, this much. And it got up to the point, so many people were wanting this certain orchid, and somebody that's got a whole lot of spare money, one of those people that doesn't think it's staggering that they spent $14 billion on Mother's Day, spending $250,000 on a flower here. And here's a picture of the flowers. So, honestly, I saw it and I just thought it looks like almost every other orchid I've ever seen. But somebody thinks it's really valuable. Somebody thought it was really valuable. They thought it was worth buying. And it was anonymous, so they don't actually know who bought it. So it's not public knowledge, but that's how much they paid for it. And honestly, if I paid $250,000 for flowers, I wouldn't want anybody to know either. So there you go. That is the Shenzhen orchid, the world's most expensive flower, $250,000, just for one plant. I guess not one flower, but one plant. And here's the craziest part is when I went online and did some research reading about this, and it said one of the crazy things about it is that it's known for its flavor. So there's a possibility not only are people buying these things, but they might actually eat them. And if that's the case, you might be able to argue that that's the world's most expensive food. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm spending $250,000 on something to eat, it will not be a flower. But no, I could never justify $250,000 on a meal, period. Well, I can, but anything short of a house. If I can't live in it, that's too expensive. How about that? So maybe a $250,000 tree house. There you go. I'll see if I can talk Carolyn into that one. Not happening. Okay, so that's it for our game time on Restless, and it's Mother's Day, so I'm going to share a little story with you guys from the Bible. And I shared a little bit with you earlier. Is this story is talking about don't let life circumstances cause you to become bitter. So the reason we say that is because we don't always, yes, bad things happen. We look out in the world, you watch the news, it's easy to see bad things happen. It's easy for us to see that, life is hard. It doesn't mean that everything in life is good. But the reality of it is when you live your life in a reactionary, when your happiness is dependent on the circumstances of life around you, you're always just going to be living a life on an up and down roller coaster, up and down, up and down. So for me, one of the things that I talk about is as a type 1 diabetic, the days that are really difficult for me, the days that are really stressful for me, are the days where my blood sugar goes up and down significantly, repeatedly, right? So my goal as a type 1 diabetic is to try to keep my blood sugars as level as possible. But the up and down, when I am reactionary to my blood sugars all day long, by the end of the day, I'm worn out, I'm exhausted, I'm, kind of just bummed out about what's going on in the world. So when we let life circumstances dictate our mood and our happiness, we end up getting into these cycles where, my days are only good if good things around me happen. Our days are bad when bad things around me happen. But one of the things that we are called to as Christians is to it talks about our joy should transcend understanding, right? And that means we should still have joy even when life is hard. And that can be a difficult thing for us to do. So we're going to take a look into the life of a woman named Naomi. And in the Bible, for those of you guys that don't know, Naomi is the name of the woman who is Ruth's mother. But we're going to take a look. So this is pre-Ruth a little bit. Get my Nerf gun out of my way so I can get the Bible. So Ruth is in the Old Testament. It's a book in the Old Testament. It's the only book of the Bible that's named after a woman. So it's a pretty cool just piece of information there. Ruth is towards the beginning of the book Bible. So you can look at my Bible. This is the front. This is the back. It's towards the beginning. It's tucked in between the book of Judges and 1st and 2nd Samuel. And for those of you guys that are familiar with the history throughout the Bible, Judges is a time in history. So it's a time in history. It's about 1,000 years before Christ, where the people of Israel, there wasn't a king. There wasn't a ruler over the people of Israel. They were just a people. And the book of Judges was basically these people that kind of served as a representative to God to give them direction. So this was before the king. And you guys remember the story. You guys remember the stories, and we'll go into that a little later. about how the people of Israel looked at everybody around them, saw that everybody around them had a king, and then they said, well, everybody else has a king. I want to have a king as well. So we've got this time in history where before Israel had a king. So yeah, Aiden, those are definitely, yes. Deborah was a judge. Samson was a judge. There was a couple 100 years period where judges were ruling over the people of Israel. And then, but I guess the reason this is significant, the reason the people of Israel didn't have a king and they had judges instead is because God was supposed to be a king over the people of Israel, right? We were supposed to have God as our king. So the reason the Israelites didn't have a king is because that's where God belonged. And we're going to actually take one of the names we're going to hear in this story actually pertains to that. So I'm going to be reading from the book of Ruth. You guys don't need to grab it in your Bible if you don't want to, but I'm just going to read a few short passages. This first one is from Ruth chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 1 and 2. So it starts off, in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, so you know Bethlehem, right? The place where Jesus was born. This was over 1,000 years before Jesus. So well before Jesus. A man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. Okay, so a lot of the times we read the Bible, and because we're not super familiar with the people, or we're not super familiar with the book of Ruth was originally written in Hebrew, right? So we don't speak Hebrew. So some of these things you read and they just go over our heads. They don't make sense, right? So we're going to take a look at these names. So yeah, Cole, I'm glad you asked what the names were. The names were of the sons was Mahlon and Chilion. So Mahlon and Chilion, we're going to talk about that in a sec. And the man's name was Elimelech. The man's name was Elimelech, and the woman's name, as we've already been over, is Naomi. And so this is like, it doesn't really mean a whole lot by we just read it, right? So speaking English, reading what we just read, we know that there were 4 people. We know that they were in Bethlehem. They were originally from Bethlehem. We know that they went to Moab because there was a famine, right? That's all we get out of that passage, right? But if we kind of step back and we're looking at this from a story narrative perspective, we see the name Elimelech, right? Let's say you're Hebrew and you understand what these words mean. You see the word Elimelech, which means God is king, right? So the main man in this story to begin with, his name is God is king, Elimelech. Naomi, so a man whose name is God is king, and a woman whose name is Naomi, which means sweetness, right? Sweetness. So we have God is king and sweetness get married, right? So that's the making of a story where you know, it's probably going to be pretty joyous, right? Probably going to be pretty joyous. You're looking, okay, what comes next when God is king meets sweetness? They have 2 kids. We have 2 kids, and one is named Chilion and one is named Mahlon. So what do you think those names mean? Do you think God is king and sweetness came together and they made, what do you think Chilion mean? Does it mean like powerful child, or, maybe like wealthy ruler, Mahlon? What do you think? No, it means sickly. So the name of the child is sickly, right? And weakness. So we've got 2 kids that are born to sweetness and God is king, and they get introduced into this story. And then so we see that, okay, sweetness and God is king. Elimelech and Naomi give birth to Mahlon and Chilion, which is sickly and weakness. And they move to a land called Moab, right? And you guys might not make any connection, right? Like I said, this isn't really something that we deal with on a regular basis. We know Bethlehem was where Jesus was born, but we hear Moab and it's like, okay, it sounds like somewhere in the middle of the desert. Like, what's Moab? And basically they left Bethlehem to go to Moab, right? And about 100 or 150 years later, we read in the book of Psalms, you guys know King David, right? We're actually going to come full circle to him again. We know King David, king of the people of Israel. So obviously King David lived a little later than this passage of scripture because we were just after Judges, right? So this was in the time of Judges. It says, in the days when Judges ruled. So this is obviously before David, right? They go to a place called Moab. David, in Psalm 109, says, Moab is my wash basin, right? And that's his way of saying Moab is a terrible place. Moab is not somewhere you want to go. Moab is a bad place. He says, it's my wash basin, right? It's my filth. It's my dirty stench, right? He's basically saying, like, this is a bad place. This is a place where you do not want to be. This is a place whose people you do not want to associate these people, and that place is filth, right? I don't know if you guys have ever had somebody come up with, like, talking about an area or a city that they think is terrible. You know, they say, oh, that place is trash, right? Basically, King David is talking about Moab, and he says, oh, Moab, that place is trash. Literally, in the Bible, he says, Moab, Moab is my wash basin, right? That's a biblical insult here. If you ever want to use a biblical insult, you're a wash basin. No. Okay, so that's the beginning of this story. Now we're going to kind of move forward a little bit. So while they're in Moab, both of their sons, Chilion and Mahlon, take wives. So basically they have Moabite wives. So they marry women that are from Moab, right? And then in Moab, again, a few years later, there's another famine. So they left Bethlehem fleeing a famine, and now they're in Moab, and there's another famine, so they're having to flee there. But while they're there, both of the sons die. Actually, first, Elimelech dies. So this is over the course of a short period of time. Naomi moves to Moab, a place that David says relates to a wash bucket or a trash can or a dump, right? Her husband dies. Both of her sons die. And she's left with these two daughter-in-laws, right? And the way culturally things worked back then is you were as a woman, you were very dependent on your husband for wealth, right? You weren't going to get paid for working. You weren't going to get, it's not like the world is today, right? So Naomi went from, they shared a little bit about her husband was a man who owned a decent amount of land. So he wasn't a poor man, but her husband died, her sons died, and basically at that point, it means she had nothing left, right? Because what was considered valuable at the time, and the reason in the Bible it gives you all of those big long lineage lines is because you were so dependent that your value was almost by your ability to produce offspring. And basically Naomi, because both of her sons had died, now she's no longer going to have a family because she has these two daughters and no children. So we're going to go forward 10 years, right? Not from the time that her husband died, but from the time they left Bethlehem. And we're going to jump into, what section am I going to go to? Ruth chapter 4. So we're going to jump forward 4 chapters. So we've got this tough time that just happened. And actually, no, I want to read the end of chapter 1 first. So basically, this is just the first chapter. The beginning, it says they went to Moab, and then we find out that her husband dies. We find out that both of her sons die. And then after a certain period of time, they decided to go back to Bethlehem. And then it says, when she arrived in Bethlehem, she said, this is what happened. It said, so one of the daughter-in-laws, before she left, Naomi said, you guys just go back to where you came from, go back to your original families. And the reason the book is called Ruth is because one of the daughter-in-laws, Ruth, decided to stay with Naomi. And that's where one of the famous Bible phrases that people will say is, your people will be my people and your God will be my God. That is the oath that Ruth made to Naomi. She says, you've given me the option to go back to my family because you are not in a situation to take care of me, but I'm choosing to go with you. I'm choosing to follow you, and I am going to not just go and be one of your people, but I am going to also follow your God. And so Naomi and Ruth end up going back to Bethlehem. So Ruth is a Moabite, right? So they are not the most liked people by the Israelites. So they go back. So the two women went home until they came to Bethlehem. And when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the woman exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" So they're saying they haven't seen her for 10 years, and they're just thinking, wow, this person has suffered so much, we barely even recognize who she is. She looks so sickly, so worn, so just, it doesn't even look like the same woman, the one who left us when she was called Sweetness, right? And she says, don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter, right? So basically she's saying when she left, she was Naomi, which meant sweetness. And she says when she comes home, she said, don't even call me Naomi anymore. Change my name and call me Mara, because I am bitter, right? And it says, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? I have had misfortune upon me, right? So basically, we understand, she suffered loss, she suffered hardship, and we've all had those days where, life seems really hard, or maybe you've had, an entire lifetime of hardship, right? And I'm not saying to belittle those things and ignore those things and don't feel pain, right? But the reality of it is we don't know the work that God is doing, right? And she, in this moment, she's blaming God. She's not really she's not saying like God is a terrible person, but she's just saying, hey, I've had so much hardship. I don't think my name should be Naomi anymore. I don't think I am experiencing sweetness anymore. I'm kind of bitter, right? And we've had days where we wake up in a bad mood. We've had days where we experience bitter, but I don't think any of us have experienced this kind of real frustration. All of the men in my family have died, and I've had to come back with nothing, and my life is ruined, right? That's kind of the state that she's in. Like, I'm not going to have any more family. My name is ruined, essentially. My name is ruined because all of my sons are dead. So how is my name going to continue? How am I going to be supported? How am I going to get on with life? But we go on. We have a couple chapters, chapter 2, chapter 3, beginning of chapter 4. So she returns to Bethlehem, right? That was the end of chapter 1. She returns to Bethlehem. She brings with her daughter-in-law, Ruth. Her daughter-in-law, Ruth, ends up going and working for someone. She's employed by someone. She's working in his field, not really working for him, but we can go into the story of Ruth. It's a whole nother section of scripture. But basically what happens is Ruth, who is Naomi's daughter-in-law, whose husband has also died, right? she ends up marrying this guy Boaz. And Boaz is a wealthy landowner in the community, right? And basically Naomi and Ruth, for that matter, who are kind of in a hopeless situation, end up being redeemed. They call this what was happened. They called it Boaz redeemed them. And essentially what he did is he took the responsibility of caring for them upon himself, right? And he ended up marrying Ruth. And with Ruth, he had a child. So by default, because of that, now Naomi, who, she lost her husband, she lost both of her sons, she now has a grandson, right? So we're going to head over to chapter 4. And this is kind of in closing. I'm going to wrap up here because we've been going for almost an hour already. But we're going to go. So Ruth has a son with Boaz. So Naomi, who's lost her husband, who's lost both of her sons, now has a grandson. It says the women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." Right? So basically what's happening here is a woman, Naomi, who wanted to change her name to bitterness, is experiencing redemption through God's blessing. Right? She was hopeless. She was feeling like she had no worth. She felt like she wasn't seen by God. But in this passage, all the women are going to you. It's like, you may have lost your husband and your sons, but you have gained a daughter-in-law who is worth 7 sons, right? And in this moment, it says, and now you have a grandson, and may his name be great. So they're just praying a blessing on him. May his name be great. So basically we go on, very end of the chapter. The women living there, the chapter of the book of Ruth ends. So this is the very end of the book, right? So Boaz and Ruth is Naomi's granddaughter. Naomi is Ruth's mother-in-law. So mother-in-law is Naomi. Her daughter-in-law is Ruth. Ruth has a son, and they name him Obed. And this is how the end of the book of Ruth ends. Salmon, the father of Boaz. So Boaz is the man that Ruth married. Boaz, the father of Obed, right? So we just learned who Obed is. Obed is the son that Ruth had. So Naomi's grandson, Obed. Obed, the father of Jesse. And Jesse, the father of David. And as we all know, and we've been talking about throughout many, many Bible studies and scripture lessons at church, David became the future king of Israel, right? So one of the things that we learn in this passage of scripture is we don't know what God is doing all of the time, right? It would be great if we did. But in this moment, and the reason we talk about it, we call this bittersweet, right? There was some difficulty in Naomi's life. Naomi went through some serious hardships. And we don't belittle those. We don't say, oh, it wasn't that bad. No, it was that bad. It was that bad, right? She did suffer. She did suffer. The suffering was real. And for those of you guys that have ever been through suffering, you don't go afterwards like, no, I wasn't really suffering. It was fake. No, the suffering was real, right? When Jesus was on the cross, it wasn't that he wasn't suffering. No, his suffering was real. And it doesn't mean that we belittle the suffering, but it means we look at the suffering through the lens of what God is doing. So, right, we see Jesus suffering on the cross and the redeeming work that he did on the cross. And Jesus looks at what he did on the cross. And yes, it was painful. It was hard, but he knew that it was what God was doing to work redemption into our story. right? So in the story of Naomi, Naomi went through hardship. Naomi went through bitterness. She went through difficult times. But at the end, you're able to look back and you're able to see what God was doing throughout the course of the entire story, right? And God was using her story, the story of Naomi. He used her bitterness to bring, into the lineage where when we look at the lineage of David, it goes back and we see the story of Ruth and Naomi, right? So basically what that means is that Naomi was King David's great-grandmother. And when we hear the story of Jesus and they read the genealogy of Jesus, it gets traced back to David, right? And by being traced back to David, that also means the lineage of Jesus is also traced back to this woman, Naomi. So when you're going through a hard time, and I'm not saying, like we shared this earlier, life is not always easy. There is hardship, there is bitterness, but the way we're able to have the peace that I talked about, the peace that doesn't make any sense to other people, is because we're able to see the big picture of God at work throughout history, right? And it might not make sense to us at the time, but it just means that God is at work. It doesn't mean God is making bad things happen to you. God doesn't make bad things happen to you. But in the midst of bad things happening, God is able to write as part of our story things that can bring joy and things that can bring redemption. And Cole, to answer your question, genealogy is basically, you learn about genealogy when you are at school and you do like a family tree. Like a family tree is basically like a simplified way of saying genealogy. Genealogy is basically your family history. So when we say the genealogy of Jesus, it's basically saying you're tracing back your family's history. So if you follow the genealogy of Jesus, you are following Jesus's family history from his father to his grandfather to his great-grandfather and going all the way back. So if you do that with Jesus, eventually you get to David. And in this passage, if you trace David's history back 4 generations, you get to Naomi. So that's what it means when to take a look at genealogy. It's and it's actually not spelled with an I. It's Genealogy. So, and if you want to look into genealogy more, you can ask your dad about it. I'm sure he'd love to sit down and talk to you about some genealogy. He could take a look at your family genealogy or Jesus' genealogy. Or if you want to just look at the book of Matthew chapter 1, that's a great glimpse into a genealogy. And a lot of times in the Bible, they use genealogies to help us trace history and time. If you're trying to figure out when something happened when looking through the Bible, you're able to look at, okay, when does this correlate with who this person lived, and we know when this person lived. So you're able to say, okay, it was 5 generations after this person. Okay, so we know how long that was. So basically, the main lesson for today, and I'm going to actually go into this a lot more in depth on Sunday. So if you join me on Sunday for our in-person program, you don't need to. It's not like you're not going to get anything out of today if you don't come. But if you're with us on Sunday morning, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the story of Naomi and how God kind of took her bitterness and her misfortune and used it to bless an entire people group, right? Because they always say the entire nation of Israel was blessed through David, right? And we all know that we were all blessed through what Jesus did. But amidst that, there was suffering that took place. There was hardship that took place, right? So the reason we're calling this bittersweet is even though there are hard times, we still know that God is using them to redeem. So that's it for Restless today. We've been over an hour already, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But I love you guys. I miss you guys. I hope to see you soon. I'm going to see if I can't shoot the screen out. And I'll see you guys for Restless in 2 weeks. Bye. Oh, close. I keep hitting this same. Oh, I got it. I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic weekend. Happy Mother's Day.